Well, welcome back to another episode of the Believe in Georgia Tech podcast. We're your co-hosts. That is RJ Schafer. This is Jackson Caudell. I just walked in the door, just got back from Georgia Tech, got to talk to Brent Key, got to talk about the scrimmage. I've gotten to see fall camp all week, so we're definitely going to get into that. But RJ, how you doing, man?
Feeling great, man. We got some pretty big things to talk about this week. So we are out of the dog days of summer. Fall camp is back, and
3 weeks.
2025 recruiting on fire.
3 weeks. Yeah, we've got recruiting, we've got fall camp, and then just the thing underneath all the surface is like we've got 21 days till game day in Dublin. So super excited about that. Fall camp's going to roll on next week. I've been there every day. Got to talk to coaches. We'll get into all that. I mean, so like coming into the day, earlier this week, we were planning to do a show, and it was just mostly going to be about the scrimmage and what coach said afterwards and talking about all that. But and like it's a good but like this isn't bad. Georgia Tech and Brent Key and his staff went out and landed another 4-star prospect. And sorry if I mispronounce your name, Demola, 4-star offensive tackle Demola Ajudayan. I hope I pronounced that right. Apologies if not. Look, this is huge. Look, he plays. He's a Georgia kid, and they beat out Kirby Smart and Georgia to get him. Like that was a big thing there. And that gives Georgia Tech 2 4-stars in their 2024 class. And, we all know who's committing next week. Like 5-star offensive tackle Josh Petty is committing next Monday, August 12th. That could really give Georgia Tech one of the best offensive line classes in the entire country. But, man, what did you think about this?
I just thought it was huge, especially knowing that, Georgia Tech has already landed a 4-star offensive lineman before today. I think it just kind of shows to, and I talked about this last week, but it's still true, the culture that Brent Key has been building at Georgia Tech, it's huge. And you're starting to see it pay off in recruiting, and you're starting to see it on the field with how solid the offensive line has been.
Yeah, and not just Brent Key, though. Like, Jeep Wade deserves a ton of credit, too. Like, he's been recruiting his tail off. Obviously, we've talked a ton about the improvement the O-line made last year from 2022 to 2023, and this is a continuation of that. Like, they're just really, really hitting the recruiting trail hard. And that, like I said, they might not be done. They've got a couple of commitments coming up in the next little bit. Another one kind of flying under the radar a little bit, 3-star wide receiver Evan Haynes. He's committing here pretty soon, but obviously Josh Petty's kind of the headliner. And if I didn't mention Demola, he plays at Duluth High School, right around my neck of the woods over here near Tech. So that it's always good when you can keep in-state talent in. Like even if you don't live in the state of Georgia, like the state of Georgia produces what kind of talent is there. Like that, it's a lot. And being able – you're not going to keep it all home. Like, obviously, you have a lot of battles you got to fight. Like, fighting Kirby Smart is like 10 battles unto itself and trying to get those guys. Auburn is obviously really hot on the trail right now. And then other SEC schools as well, like Alabama, Tennessee. Like, they're all going to try to come into Georgia and get talent. So the way they've been able to do it has been really impressive. And, look, a cherry on top would be if Josh Petty were to commit next Monday. And if you want more Josh Petty content, over at Georgia Tech on SI, we actually got an interview with him, Najee Wilkins. We've had him on the show, our recruiting expert. He got a really good sit down with him, talked about all his finalists and his decision. Right now, it appears like it's still a Georgia Tech, Florida State thing. I've seen Ohio State mentioned a little bit, and look, you can never count those guys out. I think me and you mentioned this specifically last week when you have kind of an insane class like they do. Like they could really, if they hit on some of their targets down the stretch, like Ohio State could enter that highest rated class ever territory. Like it's that good. Like it's really kind of insane. So some kids are going to gravitate towards that. We haven't really heard much Ohio State buzz, but just keep them in the back of your mind. Like never count out the Buckeyes. So that's kind of our recruiting piece for today. Anything else on Demola or Petty or anything recruiting wise?
No, I just wanted to say that it's almost been a night and day difference from years past in recruiting. Like Georgia Tech is in a ton of races that in years past they would not be in, because there would not in the past be a guy that's choosing between Ohio State, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. So I think it's just kind of a testament to where the program is heading.
Yeah, it definitely is, and like I said, they're doing a really good job, but the job's not done. Like they've still got some guys on the board that they want to get to, and we will definitely see what happens. So I guess the main topic, or I guess secondary, based on what's your preference? Like I know a lot of people like recruiting and that kind of news, and we hit on that first, so we'll definitely get into fall camp. Like I said, I've been there every single day. Gotten to see. Now we only get to see the first 15 minutes roughly of practice, and they're mostly just doing some individual drills. So in the viewing sessions we have, there's not so much to take, but they did have a scrimmage today. Media was not allowed to view it, but Brent Key came and talked to us for probably 30 minutes. He met with us about 3:45, 4 o'clock, and he stayed in there. So there was a lot to take in. I'll just kind of go position by position, and you can kind of chime in and everything. So quarterback wise, he said all of them look good. He didn't mention Haynes King was the only guy he didn't mention, I think, singularly, and I think that was just kind of like, guys, we know what Haynes King is. So look, he said he had a good day, but he didn't really mention him by name. He wanted to single out Zach Pyron in the group. He said he's really had a great fall camp. And to me, that's good to hear because I've, wrote about it last year, pretty much copy and pasted that coming into this year. Like having a talented backup who can step in and has played before. Look, I know it's just a few games before he got hurt a couple of years ago, but to have somebody who was a 4-star quarterback and that's played a little bit before and flashed some young talent, sounds like he's having a great fall camp. And then he did mention both Aaron Philo and Graham Knowles look good out there today. Any of that, any comments on that?
Yeah, that's just probably one of the positions where if, say, an injury happens, and you need to go to your backup guy, like you are not worried at all for really any of the guys, but Zach Pyron especially. Like there's just so much talent and experience in that quarterback room right now.
And I mean this in the nicest way possible. I hope we don't have to see Zach Pyron play this year. Like that, it's just you don't want to see Zach Pyron play this year unless it's in a blowout situation where he can come in and get reps. But that was kind of it for the quarterback position. Going to running back, one of the questions we've been talking about here on the show was the depth at the position. Like we like the guys that are there, but a lot of it is unproven. So he did take time to talk about that today, and I think he's done this every time either I've asked him or somebody else has about the running back position, especially in a scrimmage setting. It starts off, Jamal's really good. We kind of gave him a little bit of rest today. Like he still carried the ball, but it's like we know what Jamal Haynes can do, which I think is smart because, the running back position, you want to keep guys fresh. The guy he mainly mentioned today was Evan Dickens and Anthony Carey, and that's two guys we've been talking about pretty heavily on here. Evan Dickens, like when I've got to go out there and watch him, like he's looked really impressive. And I don't want to, I think it's too early to start making predictions whether he's definitely the number 2 guy, but I definitely think he might have a leg up there. And then I think Anthony Carey's going to get carries too. Like I think it's going to be a number 2 back by committee. Like, you want to, all those guys I think are going to see carries. And another guy that's been really impressive just from like what's the word I'm looking for here? Just from a visual, like, true freshman running back Trelane Maddox, like he's a good 6'1", 220 pounds, and he looks every bit of it. Like he played at Parkview High School. He was a member of the 2024 recruiting class, and he was dinged up there, and so getting to see him out there, I'm telling you, he's really impressive. I don't know how much he's going to factor in right away or even during the season, but like that's somebody I would definitely keep my eye on. But anything you wanted to chip in about running backs?
Yeah, I think that's another position where it'll kind of be an active battle throughout the season. And I like what you said, like running back 2 by committee. But I think depending on the game, depending on what team they're playing and what defense they're going to face, I think we might see more of Anthony Carey in some games than we do others. But I don't think it's a case of, oh, this guy is better than the other one. It's just who's better in the situation. Sure.
Like that's – and we haven't got to talk to Norvell McKenzie yet, so I didn't mention any notes from him. We get to talk to him actually on Monday. There's no practice or anything tomorrow. I'll be there, like I said, Monday through Saturday next week. Like it'll be very, very busy. But moving on to wide receivers, the only 2 guys he mentioned specifically by name, and like it was good to hear, was Christian Leary and Leo Blackburn. Like he really talked a lot about Leo Blackburn, just how good it was to see him out there making plays, him coming back from injury. Like they really, like he was like almost glowing when he mentioned his name today. And like that, I think that's music to the ears of every Georgia Tech fan out there. Like we know how physically gifted he is. He's unfortunately, been a little dinged up and hasn't really got a chance to put it all together yet. But me and you've talked about like he could really add a different element to your offense, because as good as guys like Eric Singleton, Malik Rutherford, Leary, Chase Lane, those guys are, there's only one guy like with Leo Blackburn's physical stature and that specific kind of ability. That's really the only polished guy you have like that right now. And again, if he's healthy, which it certainly seems like he's been staying healthy and playing well, there's no reason to think he couldn't be a game changer in this offense, man.
Yeah, and I also think there's no reason to think that he couldn't be an NFL talent, because if he plays healthy and he plays like we think he's going to play, like there's no saying he doesn't get picked in the first round of the NFL draft. Yeah.
I mean, like there are just certain guys that like you walk out there, you might not know nothing about them. And this was like what I was still trying to get to know some of the freshmen's numbers, because those are the guys I still hadn't quite got down yet when fall practice started. And I go out there and like I saw Trelane Maddox, like, dang, he looks impressive. And then like Leo Blackburn's just like, he looks the part, and like he looks like an NFL body. And I hope he can stay healthy and put it all together. It would have just added a really good element to the offense. Now, pretty much all of last week, we got to talk to Buster Faulkner, Chris Winkie. Those have been the only two offensive coaches we've talked to. They really praise how deep the receiver room is. And Haynes King did too when we talked to him the other day. Just the fact that, even when they bring the third team in, that they have guys out there at receiver that can make plays and get open. Like they're really, really excited about what they have in that receiver room. Anything else there, or should we move on?
I think we should move on, but
should move on. So me and you have loved talking about the tight end position. And, today Brent Key singled out three guys today, when talking about that. We've heard pretty much all fall camp that Brett Seither's been really solid. Jackson Halls is somebody he's mentioned is just like we got to talk to him actually for the first time last week, and that was awesome. Like he is another really impressive guy. Just looking at him, like he's a bigger target. I think he's going to be really useful in the red zone. Key in the spring kind of singled him out for catching the ball over the middle and just being really tough and physical to bring down. He mentioned he brought that up again today. And for the first time, Luke Harpering, the highest rated, the 4-star tight end that they got, or I guess technically he was listed as athlete, but we knew he was going to play tight end. He didn't get to go through the spring. He was a late enrollee. So this was kind of his first scrimmage, his first chance to get out there. And Brinky said he played really well. He's still saying he's getting all the little technical things down. I think what you would expect from a true freshman, but I thought it was notable he mentioned his name, because me and you both talked about like he is the future of that position. And just, you have good players there, we think, but you don't have like some top 10 pick stud right there where that's going to hog all the snaps and get all the catches. So there's room for you to get in there. I thought it was notable. And those were the only three guys I believe he mentioned at the tight end position. So anything there?
Yeah, and one thing I saw about Seither, he had, and I think this is a testament to his mentality, he had like a big family emergency, and he was dealing with some things throughout the week, and he decided to still play in the scrimmage, and he went out and caught 2 touchdowns. So I think it's just the mentality of these guys, especially at this tight end position, like they want to go out there and they want to play.
Yeah, and that's a good point to mention. So we want to send our thoughts over to him. I know he's been dealing with a lot this week. So yeah, just can't imagine that. So going to the offensive line, the only guy, we've pretty much known, like you're bringing 4 starters back. We've talked a lot about the right guard spot. Key said that no pun intended, Keelan Rutledge took every snap with the first team today at right guard. That's what he told us. Said he's really coming along. Now he's another guy. He was there for the spring, but he was banged up, so he didn't get to go through it. We've talked about his addition a lot on the show. Like he was an all-conference member at Middle Tennessee State. We have pretty high hopes for him. I thought it was notable. He got every first team snap today. Now they're having another scrimmage next Saturday. But the way it sounded today, like I would expect Keelan Rutledge to be the guy out there when they face Florida State, and like he's going to have a tall task because Florida State's defensive line is really elite. So, but that was really all he mentioned offensive line wise today.
Yeah, I think it's just good that there's not really a question mark at offensive line right now.
It's like and like that's the thing. Like I'll say this, and like it's not at anybody in general. It's just because somebody wasn't mentioned or a position wasn't talked about super in depth, that can be a good thing. Like just because like he didn't mention Haynes King, because I had some people ask me like, "Whoa, what did he say about Haynes King? Why isn't there anything about Haynes King? Why didn't he talk about Haynes King? Like, what do you need to hear about Haynes King that's gonna be all that different?" Like I think he made it a point to try to talk about some of the backups and depth guys there. So just because you didn't hear somebody's name or didn't, a position wasn't talked about as much as the other, don't read super deep into that. I'll just put that out there.
And I think you kind of want it to be uneventful, because if they trust in a guy and he has been up to expectations, like, I mean, you're not going to hear anything about it.
Right. So the position he really wanted to talk about, and I asked him a question today about, was a defensive line. Like it was another one of those like glowing moments he had today, just where he got really happy and excited talking about him. And, when we got to talk to Tyler Santucci last week, we got to talk to Jess Simpson. We're going to talk to Kyle Pope next week. They really feel like they have the bodies on the defensive line for depth. Like whether it was, he talked about Romello Height, Thomas Gore, all those guys, all the newer guys that came in. We know they have Zeke Biggers, Horace Lockett, Mekhi Scott. They really feel like they have the guys up front to be effective on the defensive line. Now, you got to show it. Like it's not, we can't just take you on your word. Although like I feel fairly optimistic about it. But again, it's just one of those kind of wait and see things where proof's got to be in the pudding. But that was probably the most notable position today, I think, maybe outside of tight end, where he just really lit up talking about, and they just really like the guys and the depth that they have, and like unlike previous seasons.
Yeah, and I think that is huge, because we had talked about earlier in this offseason how defensive line might be a question mark, because you had some guys leave, you had some guys transfer in and then left after the spring, and you kind of didn't know what it was going to look like. But it seems like excitement and the coaches are building towards that the front part of the defense is going to look pretty solid this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, but still some work to be done. Now, as far as the linebackers and the secondary, those were two positions he didn't mention. And again, it could just be, they went out and did their job. He talked to us like for a long time today, and he didn't mention those. So we'll have more time to add. We'll get to talk to him about it next week as well. So I've heard good things, but it's, again, we'll have to wait and see. Talk about those next week. So that was pretty much it as far as anything goes. He did go in a little bit about, he can't talk about specific recruits because of certain rules and everything, but we did get a chance to ask him about recruiting and how everything's going. And, he just really took time to praise his coaching staff and what they're doing. Like, I'm sure most anybody that follows college football knows that recruiting and like that's a 24/7 job. Like, recruiting and coaching, like they just go hand in hand. Like you can't be a high level college football coach and not be a good recruiter. Like in this day and age, like it's just impossible. And we talked about Jeep Wade. He mentioned a lot of guys on the staff, just in the amount of dedication they're putting into it, the amount of time they're putting into it. So that I thought that was notable as well. I don't know if people have seen on social media, they've had a speaker series going on. They had Brandon Marshall come by the other day. Now, for those that may not know that connection, obviously Brent Key coached at UCF for a long time. That's where Brandon Marshall played, so that's where that comes in. Then they had guys like I think a U.S. Marine and some other military members come in and just kind of give some lessons and talk about stuff. And they said the guys really bought into it, really enjoyed it. So I thought that was interesting to hear. They went 3 hours, just for some like little technical tidbits here. They went for 3 hours today, and I think he said they ran around 160 plays, I think, and that was kind of the goal. I'll have to go check my notes again, but I think he said about 160 plays. So that's pretty good. That's about the same amount they did in the spring. So and again, it was hot today. it was very, very hot today out in Atlanta. And I'm sure, the turf and everything made it 100 times more hot because it was funny. So I pulled up and he was talking about this in his opening statement kind of deal. And I heard the Florida State war chant, whatever you want to call it, little fight song deal they got going on over there. And it was blaring, and I think they were trying to, because I'm sure a lot of people know you got the new helmet comms this year. You get plays in like the NFL, so they're trying to get used to having a lot of crowd noise. Obviously, it's not a road game, so it's a little different, but having some crowd noise and having to deal with that with the helmet comms and everything, like that's something that they're trying to do. So that was something interesting he mentioned today. Some other things, like he really again praised the defense a lot. He said they didn't give up any big plays to the offense. He said one side of the ball didn't really just massively stand out more than the other, but he did take a lot more time to talk about the defense, which again, that's I think music to everybody's ears if you're a Georgia Tech fan. So that's pretty much it as far as scrimmage notes go. So because again, like we can't be out there, we can't see it or anything, so we deal with the information we're given. So they have another one next week, and then it's time to get into to game mode and everything. So getting ready for Florida State, and I said 3 weeks away, man. 3 weeks away. We're going to be doing an instant reaction at about this time. So we'll definitely see what's going on there. But anything else you wanted to add to the fall camp notes?
Not really. It's just it's kind of interesting to think about helmet communication, because it seems like, and this is probably a cliche now, but it seems like every single year that college football is getting closer to NFL. And I wonder if that is going to, A, have an effect on how guys play, or B, is going to make guys more or less MLB ready. NFL ready. So
you got those Tigers on the mind.
Yeah, they're not doing good, but I just wonder if that'll have a big impact.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in that. Like I said, we'll probably be back. Our next show will probably be next Saturday. Again, they're having a scrimmage, so we'll kind of do a similar show to this. And then, Josh Petty will be committing in a couple days, so we'll be taking care of all that. But stuff we always mention on the show, if you're watching us on YouTube, we would love it if you would subscribe to the channel, give the video a like. It helps us out. It helps us kind of spread the Georgia Tech content out. We love doing the show for you guys. If you want to comment, leave us some suggestions. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, what we can do better. We're always listening. It's all about you guys and what we want to do for you. So we definitely appreciate anybody that's tuning in. If you listen on podcast form, you can basically almost copy and paste my comments there. Just leave us a review. If it's 1 star, 5 star, any whatever you want to leave. Just we appreciate it, and we appreciate you taking your time to do so. But anything else before we get out of here, man?
That's all I got, man. Go Jackets.
Absolutely. So we will be back next Saturday. And this is the Believe in Georgia Tech podcast, and we will see you guys next week.